Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we need to talk about what the next Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure deck is going to be. This most recent one was just such a banger. In my opinion, it's probably the smartest thing Konami could have done in a while. And I'm not even a Blue Eyes fan. I really don't care either way for Blue Eyes, but I just think it's so genius to take one of the most popular cards, archetypes, whatever in the game, make it a very accessible product and a great product overall. It's going to make that deck top tier ish. We'll see. It could actually be one of the best decks, or it'll be up there, up there. So they executed the cards well as far as the new stuff and support goes for Blue Eyes. And it was also structured that had phenomenal reprints in it, so it's almost like a fully playable competitive deck right out of the box, which is phenomenal, or at least three of them. And so I want to know what the next one is. I'm really excited. Structure decks are just one of the most awesome products in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's getting a new, usually pretty competitive deck, if not very competitive deck, with only three of them and a couple of other cards outside of that. And I think that puts, it just puts a lot of emphasis on it, on how good it can be, and I get excited for them. So I'm really excited to find out what the next one is. Support to keep in mind timeline wise. It looks like last year, since we've only been getting one structure deck a year, unfortunately, it looks like last year we got it May 13th was the announcement for what the structure deck was going to be. So we're a little bit ways away. We're 3 months down the line, basically, just from maybe even being in the timeline of finding out what the structure deck's going to be, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about it early. So I've done a bunch of research on this. I went through basically the entire list of Yu-Gi-Oh! Archetypes that exist and have brought up to, in my mind, what the most likely options are, and also some stuff you can probably exclude from your list. So before we get into that, let's go into a little bit of background on what structure decks have looked like in the last couple of years, because that can give us some information on what we can expect going forward. So if you look for the past couple of years, this is almost the last 4 years of structure decks. We obviously got Blue Eyes last year, anime archetype, just big anime archetype. It's important to note that was also the next in line for structure deck R, but it wasn't named R series in the OCG, which means that might be them admitting that the structure deck R series is over with and they're not going to continue on the line, which is very unfortunate because I'm a big Cyber Dragon fan. But we'll talk about that in a sec. Um, and so, yeah, we get Blue Eyes, which is still a huge anime deck. Before that, we got Fire Kings. This was a structure deck R series and a deck and an archetype that has some popularity, more or less. Then you have structure deck Pulse of the King. This is not a structure deck R, just an anime deck. Jack Atlas and the Red Dragon Archfiend deck is really cool. So again, two anime, one R. You go back one more, it's another structure deck R with Dark World. You go back one more and you get Structure Deck Forest of Trap Tricks. This one is the oddball to me, and this one is kind of the wild card on what we could end up seeing for a new structure deck, in the form of, this is not an anime deck. This is not in Structure Deck R series. This was just like a fan favorite archetype that, just without being either of those things, everybody just still was happy to get it. And it's just a random archetype they picked because they thought a lot of players would like it, and they did. This was a pretty popular structure deck. Before that, you go to Crystal Beast, again, very anime based, and before that, you go to the last structure, the third most recent structure deck R series deck, which is Agents. So in here, three anime decks, three structure deck R series, which looks like it may have been cut off with the fact that the Blue Eye structure deck doesn't have R in its name, and then one random. So that kind of sets the tone on what we can kind of look for here, at least in terms of what I think is most likely. So if you look at here and we look at structure deck R, right, looking at that, if that is not discontinued, which it's not confirmed. Konami did not come out and make an official statement saying structure decks are gone. We're not doing those anymore. That being said, the structure deck that comes after Blue Eyes, the Blue Eyes structure deck should be Cyber Dragons. Here's the problem. Cyber Dragons just got two new cards in Alliance Insight, the most recent core set that's been fully revealed. And even before that, there was a Link 1 that has a very, very clear Cyber Dragon synergy. It's not literally a Cyber Dragon card, but it might as well be. And so that puts us in a position where I'm like, okay, it seems like Cyber Dragon, they wouldn't give Cyber Dragon 2 to 3 cards right now, and then 6 months down the line, give them another 8 new cards, it just doesn't make sense. If they're going to do it, they would just do these cards in the structure deck. Why would they just give Cyber Dragon 11 cards in a year? That's insane. And so I think it kind of means that it's not there. Now, for me personally, I'm hoping that they're still doing structure deck R, because what this could mean is it might be doing something like the Atlantean situation, which is Atlanteans got 5 new cards in a core set like 2 or 3 sets ago, and then they got 3 more cards, and it kind of made me sit back and go, oh, when they got the second wave in the second core set, I was like, oh, they literally made a structure deck for Atlanteans, but then said, okay, we're in the middle of the year of fire, so let's do the Fire King one and let's skip Atlanteans. We'll get the Atlanteans in a core set or whatever, we'll fit it in. And it kind of made it very clear that, like, oh, they just made 8 cards, which is how many every archetype gets in a new structure deck. So I'm hoping that's the case here, because that would mean we might be getting 5 or 6 more Cyber Dragon cards in the next 2 core sets or something. That's what I'm hoping for, but I'm not sure, and it's all hope at this point. If they are continuing it, though, that would mean that there would be a decent chance that the next structure deck could be a masked hero-based structure deck. This masked hero, so heroes like broken up into a bunch of different archetypes: evil heroes, destiny heroes, elemental heroes, vision heroes, masked heroes, all of those. We really have not seen, to my knowledge, any masked hero support other than literally this structure deck. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as the masked hero stuff goes specifically, maybe we got Mask Change 2 separately or something, but like for the most part, we haven't gotten like any new masked hero fusions aside from this. And so this would be a cool one. They always give like hero support completely separate from each other. They never really release waves of support where it's like, here's one wave of support and there are elemental heroes, evil heroes, destiny heroes all in this one wave. It's either like, oh, we're giving you destiny hero support, we're giving you elemental hero support. Even though they all combine, they release them separately. So it is possible, if they are keeping this trend going, it could be structure deck heroes, like a new version of structure deck Heroes Strike. But at this point, I just don't think it's that likely. I'd like that to be the case, because that means we're probably getting more Cyber Dragon cards as well, but I'm not that confident in that, especially since our most recent core set in the TCG, one set ago in the OCG, had new evil hero support. So not the same version of heroes, but like all the hero stuff combines, and we got like 9 new cards in that set. So it's like, okay, I don't know if they'll do that. Okay, next topic I want to talk about is brand new archetypes. This is not something we've seen in the last couple of years, but if you go a couple of years prior to when we left off with agents, you would actually see a couple of these, right? We have seen stuff like Albaz get his own archetype. That was basically the beginning of Branded. Branded didn't really exist like that until that structure deck came out. A little bit earlier, when we were still at the early stages of Vrains, we got a Rocket structure deck. We got a Salamangreat structure deck that allowed those decks to kind of get off the ground and start playing. So it's something we've seen. And it is worth mentioning, we're about to get into the very first core set of a brand new lore, theoretically, is what kind of Konami's been kind of making it sound like. It is possible that this structure has a brand new archetype that's based in this new lore. And it is, Albaz structure deck kind of adjacent. I don't know, but that's kind of another wild card out there. It's so hard to predict that one, but it is a possibility. Another one would be kind of, if you're just talking new archetypes, like a new Vrains archetype. There are just multiple Vrains archetypes that have never been printed. These feel more to me like they have a better chance of being in like Animation Chronicle rather than a structure deck like this, like a random structure deck in the middle of the year. But I don't want to throw it out as like a 0% chance, even if it's a 1% chance, right? All right, so that's basically what I could see if there was a brand new archetype to be shown off in a new structure deck. Aside from that, now you move into the big boys. To me, these are probably the most likely ones. If I'm under the mindset of, okay, they're cutting off structure deck R, it's not really like, sure, the new lore thing could be possible. The brand new archetype from like Vrains is not that likely. These are the ones that seem the most likely. 3 out of the last 7 structure decks were all anime based, just popular characters in the anime and archetypes people like. This is where we start. Dark Magician. This one seems obvious to me. Dark Magician and Blue Eyes are kind of counterparts to each other, right? 2 biggest rivals in all of this, entire franchise, Kaiba and Yugi. These are their main boss monsters clashing, right? Blue Eyes gets an awesome structure deck in 2024. Boom. How about a new structure deck or, similar to maybe make them comparable for Dark Magician in 2025. I think that would be really cool. I'm not even that big of a Dark Magician fan either, but it does feel weird when they just make one of them really good and the other one just stays garbage for like a long time going forward. So I think this one makes sense. I actually thought this archetype had a chance of being the cover support for the newest core set, but that was revealed to be Utopia. So I think that makes this even a little more likely now that we know what's on that core set. From there, Neospatian. We haven't really seen much Neospatian support recently. We've seen like random cards that kind of have like Neo stuff going on, but not full on like Neospatian stuff. That then some of the Neo stuff just ends up being like straight up like elemental hero stuff. And as I've said, Konami has no problem pumping out hero support every single year. You could argue kind of same thing as the like masked hero thing of yeah, our last core set, like one core set ago in the OCG literally had like 9 new evil hero cards. They probably won't mess with heroes too much for a little bit. But this is one of the hero avenues that has not really been touched in a while, and it could use it. So yeah, that one's up there for me. Harpies. This one I think feels kind of right. Since like Sisters of the Rose, there have been like tiny trickles of like sort of Harpy support. I know there was like the new version of Harpy's Pet Dragon that came out a couple years ago, but that was like literally one card. And outside of that, we haven't really seen much stuff for Harpies. This one would be cool. I think this one would be fairly popular, especially if they were executed it well, and that's a huge thing. You got to execute it if you're Konami, whatever the structure deck is. You could pick a very unpopular archetype, but as long as you execute it and make that archetype like a legit tier 2 or higher, I mean, look at Blue Eyes, if they make it a legit tier 1 like threat, then the deck's going to get some buzz. So the execution is super important, but I do think Harpies could have a chance here. We haven't really seen much in years and years. I don't even remember when Sisters of the Rose came out, like what year that was, but I think it might have been pre-2020. Like it's been a minute. It's been close to 5 years since we've seen like a real wave of support for them. And I think, just being a classic archetype from one of the popular characters from the original series, I think makes sense there. Rose Dragons kind of feel similar. Haven't really seen much Rose Dragon support since Sisters of the Rose. These were both in the same product. Haven't really seen much stuff. They have like a neat Link monster that never saw any play because they just didn't really give them the kind of support that allowed that card to be facilitated. There's other Rose cards, but they don't really mesh that well with like the Rose Dragon. So I think a structure deck would give them a lot of space to really tie these cards together and actually combine the plant and Rose Dragon stuff together pretty nice. They have some really solid synchro monsters. I would love to see this one. I don't even like dragons, but these are like the cool types of non-dragony dragons that I like. So yeah, I think Rose Dragons would be another cool one. Again, tied to the main female protagonist from 5Ds. So again, very cool. Tunes. Tunes are interesting. Tunes are weird to me because like tunes would be the weirdest one for Konami to execute, right? Tunes are just it's always been a gimmicky deck, a jokey deck, just, like that. Would Konami be able to make them competitive with a structure deck? I would hope so. We don't know for sure, but it's something I would really like to see them try and do. It would be really cool. They could even take like more modern boss monsters. You know what I mean? Like take like Decode Talker, Firewall Dragon, and make like modern version, like a tune versions of some of the more modern anime relevant boss monsters. Like that would be really cool to see. And I think, they have some pretty powerful cards. They have a lot of searchability. They have a couple of powerful like trap. They have like a powerful trap card and stuff, like powerful interruptions here and there, but they don't facilitate them that well. But 8 cards, obviously, you can do so much with 8. So I think tunes should be on the radar at the very least. Here, Fluffles. Fluffles are a weird one because they're not necessarily known for being like the biggest anime deck, at least not to my knowledge. I never really viewed them that way. It's possible they are still kind of viewed as like Sora purse. I don't know how relevant Sora is overall. I never watched the Arc V anime. I think they're a fairly relevant character, but I think just people love the idea of the archetype more. So this one almost kind of could fit as technically an anime strategy, but I think it also could kind of fit into that trap tricks realm of like, even if it's not really being linked as like an anime deck, it's like there's a lot of fans who love Fluffles. I make videos talking what archetype do you want to see support for, and Fluffle always gets some votes. So I know that this deck has some pull, and I could see this one getting picked up there. And the last one for me, you guys know I'm a homer for Magnet Warriors. I'm definitely biased on this, but this one's similar to Dark Magician. To me, makes a lot of sense. Last year, ABC, the structure deck that or like the archetype that is supposed to be Kaiba's version of Yugi, like versus Yugi's, where Yugi has Magnet Warriors, Kaiba has the XYZ ABC Union Monsters. Well, they got their structured X at the same time in 2016, I want to say. ABC's blew Magnet Warriors out of the water. Magnet Warriors were never playable. ABC's were like immediately a legit threat. And last year, ABC's got 7 brand new cards in a duelist pack. So Magnet Warriors feel like they're up next, right? These are supposed to be comparable archetypes. Like these are supposed to be the biggest rivals in the game. Same or in the series. Same thing with Dark Magician Blue Eyes. Just their next, they're like follow-up archetypes. And I'd love to see Magnet Warriors get a structure deck. You guys know that would be so sick. 8 new cards for Magnet Warriors would be insane. They could do so much with that. I really think the original Electromagnet Warriors still have a ton of potential. They read like really powerful cards even to this day, and they could do so much to build around them. I would love to see this one, obviously. And then we move into the oddball ones. These ones are kind of ones that kind of sort of could fit into that Trap Tricks realm a little bit. It's hard. There were not a lot of archetypes that I read through and I was like, yeah, that feels Trap Tricksy. Of like really popular archetype hasn't gotten support. And that's another thing too that I didn't even mention. There was a handful of archetypes that you may think like, oh, I'd love to see this structure deck. But for me, there were a couple of disqualifiers for me. When I was going through this, I was like, if any of these archetypes fit into this one of these 5 categories, for me, they don't even feel like they're viable here, right? The first one is if they're just irrelevant. If they're too irrelevant, Konami's been picking pretty relevant stuff, whether they are past structure decks that they're revamping, structure deck R, that makes you relevant. If you're a big anime archetype, Blue Eyes, Jack Atlas's archetype, Jesse Anderson's archetype, that, or you're just a fan favorite archetype like Trap Tricks, right? All of these archetypes are relevant for one way or another. If you're like Aqua Actress, like you're just not getting a structure deck. That's just not happening. So if you're relevant, you don't qualify. If you've gotten a recent sizable wave of support, not happening. Within the last 3-ish years, if you've gotten a 4+ wave of support that was pretty solid, I doubt you're getting a structure deck that soon. 8 new cards, that's the problem. There are archetypes that are just too good for 8 cards, even if they haven't gotten support in a little bit. If they've still kind of like stood the test of time, they're just not getting a new structure deck. 8, like they're just too strong. I don't think Konami wants to purposefully make bad cards in a structure deck so that the deck's not too good. If it's a dual terminal archetype, I just think if an archetype's going to get support this year from dual terminal, it's going to be Terminal World 3. So I kind of disqualified those. And lastly, Magistus archetypes. I thought Spellbooks and Invoked would be interesting for a structure deck, but my problem was they're still in the middle of, the OCG stories being based around Magistus stuff. So these archetypes might get support elsewhere. I doubt it would be in a structure deck. That just doesn't really make sense to me overall there. So anyway, these last couple archetypes that I think are interesting because I think they're just fan favorites enough and kind of fit the mold that if they got a structure deck, it would be pretty cool. And I think people would be hyped for it. Number 1 is Monarch. Yeah, it's Monarch. These are old classic cards. People used to play these in, Edison formats and old classic formats. So I think a lot of people have nostalgia for them. And if they were actually going to give them a big wave to kind of try and get them on modern day level, that would be really cool. I'd definitely be worried about them making something too degenerate because this deck is all about floodgates, but they can always design cards to kind of restrict them from being able to play anything too dumb. So hopefully. And the rest of these, unfortunately, are like kind of TCG exclusives, which hurts because these would be probably more popular in the TCG than the OCG overall. But I do still think they would be really hype if Konami chose to go this direction. Burning Abyss deck needs some help, and I think a lot of people really like the idea of the deck. They love the artwork of the deck, all this stuff. It's just a fan favorite. Burning Abyss makes a lot of sense. Paleozoic's another interesting one to me, just because it kind of saw a little resurgence this past year. I know Joshua Schmidt and a lot of people who follow him and his channel, they were playing it, proving that I can actually still hold up decently well in like Master Duel and stuff. And so like new speedier modern support for them would be really cool as well. I don't know how you do it, but like they also gave them like a link monster that they just like it summon so slowly. They just cannot summon. And so like maybe if they gave them a route to like get to that card turn 1, that could be really cool for the deck. I don't know. I just think that would be really, really neat if they did that. And then of course, again, kind of with Magnet Warriors, I'm a homer. I love Subterra. It's my favorite archetype of all time. If you had to ask me, gun to my head, and a structure would be insane. You guys know, I even made a video a couple months ago showing my custom support if Subterra could get it, and I made 3 really powerful cards. They could make 8 cards where none of them are as powerful as the cards I designed, but if they added up to the same power level and help that my cards did, I would still be stoked. So I still think people would just be excited for an archetype like this. It'd be kind of more in that Traptrix realm competitively. Traptrix never broke through to like tier 1 when it got its structure deck, but it was like a really solid regional level deck, and I think that would still be hype if they could get Subterror there. But yeah, that's kind of my list. I do think the anime ones we talked about are definitely the most likely overall. You know, Dark Magician, Harpies, Toons, Dark, and Magnet Warriors, maybe the 4 most likely to me. I wouldn't hate too many of those, to be honest. If they executed them well, I don't know if I'd be mad at any of them, because I don't even like Blue Eyes, but I kind of am interested in Blue Eyes because they made them so good and they play in a very like mid-rangey way now with the structure deck. So I don't know. I'm very curious to see. Obviously, we're a couple months out, so hold on to this nugget of a video and keep in mind what we talked about here for when the reveal does come out, to see if anything we mentioned here and it ends up being what the structure deck is all about. But I feel like it's a pretty comprehensive look at what the next structure deck could be. But that's it for me here today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, get with me. Like, just pray to the Egyptian gods that Magnet Warriors or Subterra come down, because that's absolute best case scenario. But regardless, I'm still really excited to see what comes out. But I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one down the line, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.